expected anything from my family, especially not after my parents died when I was 6. I grew up in foster care, bounced between homes, and tried not to get too attached to anyone. Then one day, a letter arrived. It was handwritten. The envelope was old, yellowed at the edges, sealed with wax. Inside was a single note. To my grandson, Daniel, the house is yours now. Be careful who you let in, Edward M. Edward, my grandfather, a man I'd never met, never even heard of until that moment. The letter came with a deed to a property, an old farmhouse in the countryside near a village I'd never heard of. I thought maybe it was a scam, but the documents were real, verified by a lawyer. It felt like a blessing, finally. Something of my own, but now I know. Some things are left abandoned for a reason. I drove out the next morning. The village wasn't on any modern maps. I had to use the coordinates from the deed to find it. For hours of driving through forests and narrow, cracked roads, I found it tucked between dead trees and overgrown hedges. The house looked tired, peeling paint, broken shutters, windows clouded with dust. But it wasn't the condition that got me, it was the silence. It wasn't the peaceful kind, it was heavy. Like the house had been waiting, watching. When I stepped inside, the air was cold. The floors creaked like someone was walking beside me. Everything was still furnished, chairs, tables, even dishes on the shelves. A thick layer of dust covered everything except for one thing. Photograph. It sat on the mantel above the fireplace. It was of a man, mid-60s, pale, deep-set eyes that seemed to follow me. I flipped it over. Edward to 1966, last known resident. Someone had crossed out the year, slashed it violently. That was the first time I felt it. A sharp sting in the air, like I wasn't alone. First night, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled through the trees like it had a voice. I kept hearing soft knocks like fingernails on wood. Around 3 a.m., I decided to explore more of the house. There was a narrow hallway at the back, half concealed by a collapsed curtain. At the end of it, a door, heavy iron latch. Deep scratches carved around the edges, like something had tried to claw its way out. Or in. I tried the handle, locked. No key anywhere. Then I heard it, whispering. From behind the door, not one voice, several. Layered, male and female, young and old. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it felt wrong. Like they weren't speaking to me, they were praying. Or begging. I backed away, and that's when I noticed it. The photograph on the mantel, it had moved. Now it was on the floor, face down, when I picked it up again. Edward's face was blurred, smudged. His eyes were no longer visible. I left it there and went back to my room. But I didn't sleep that night, I just stared at the hallway, waiting for the whispers to return. They did. The next morning, I decided to call the local locksmith. He promised to stop by in the afternoon. But by evening, he hadn't shown. No call, no message. I wasn't surprised. Somehow, I knew. That door wasn't meant to be opened. At night, I fell asleep on the couch, exhausted, but not for long. At 2:41 a.m., I woke up to a sound I will never forget. Scratching inside the walls. It wasn't rats, it was slow, rhythmic, like fingernails dragging across wood from behind the living room wall. Moving toward me, then the breathing started. Shallow, wet I sat up, frozen. The wall behind the bookshelf creaked, and then thumped as if something had slammed into it. I grabbed a flashlight and moved the shelf. There were cracks in the old plaster. I put my ear to the wall. I swear to you, I heard whispers again, muffled, desperate. And then, clear as day, a voice said, "We told you not to come." I stumbled back, heart pounding. The flashlight flickered, then went dark. The batteries were new. I ran upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and didn't sleep. The next morning, the wall had changed. The plaster was chipped. Long grooves, like claw marks, trailed from the floor up to the ceiling. And something else, there were names carved into the wall. Dozens, maybe hundreds. I only recognized one, mine. I saw my name carved into the wall. I stopped pretending I was in control. I called my sister, desperate to talk to someone. I got was static, then silence, and then a voice on the line whispered, "You're not supposed to leave." I dropped the phone. That was when I heard the door to the cellar creak open on its own. It had been shut for years. The key was rusted into the lock. No one could have opened it without a crowbar, but now it hung slightly ajar. I stood there for a full minute, frozen, watching the darkness breathe at the bottom of the stairs. Then came the sound, not a voice, not an animal. It was crying, a child's cry, soft, wet, echoing upward from the shadows. I couldn't help it. I stepped down. Each stair groaned under my weight as if warning me to turn back. The air grew colder, damper, it stank of mold, and something metallic. When I reached the bottom, the crying stopped. Silence, then the light bulb above flickered on by itself. But the light was dim, sickly yellow, barely enough to see more than a few feet ahead. That's when I saw the outline in the far corner of the basement. Something was crouched, thin, long arms. "It's back to me, It was moving, rocking back and forth. I whispered, "Are you okay?" It stopped rocking, The air became still, like the whole basement held its breath. And then it turned its head, just enough to show me it wasn't a child. Its face was wrong, too long, mouth far too wide. It grinned at me slowly and whispered in a voice like broken glass, "You've seen too much." I bolted up the stairs, heart slamming in my chest, and the door slammed shut behind me. I pressed my back against it, panting. From the other side, I heard it laughing after what I saw in the cellar. I packed a bag without even thinking, clothes, phone, keys, whatever I could grab in 30 seconds. I didn't care about the deed, the furniture, the memories. I just wanted out. I got in my car, hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the keys. The engine stuttered, then roared to life. Relief hit me like a wave. I backed out of the driveway so fast I nearly hit the fence. But the road, it didn't look right. The trees were wrong, too still. Their branches hung like dead arms, blocking out the sky. And then, the headlights caught something in the middle of the road. A figure standing perfectly still. I slammed the brakes, and just like that, my car shut off. Dead, no lights, no engine, just darkness. I reached for my phone. It wouldn't turn on, completely drained. That's when I looked up again. The figure was gone. But something tapped on my window. I didn't want to turn. Every nerve in my body screamed to stay still, but I looked. It was me, My own face staring in at me from the other side of the glass, but twisted, eyes black, mouth wide open. It mouthed something. "You can't leave." The door locks clicked shut on their own. Then unlocked, then locked again. I screamed. I kicked open the door and ran, Didn't matter where. But the road, it never ended, no matter how far I ran. It was always surrounded by those same trees. And the house, when I turned around, it was behind me, like I never left. I don't remember walking back. One moment I was in the forest, lost and screaming. The next I was standing at the front door, keys still in hand, like I never left. The house welcomed me. The door creaked open on its own. I stepped inside like I was sleepwalking. It was different now, warmer, candlelit, but the light didn't reach the corners of the room. I could still feel something watching. I didn't know where I was walking. The house was guiding me, down the hallway, through the living room, into the study. I hadn't opened that door since I got here. Inside, everything was untouched, dustless, perfect. And there, on the desk, was a journal. The same one I saw in the cellar. It wasn't mine, but it had my name. I flipped it open, and what I saw inside, pages and pages of my life written in someone else's handwriting. Events no one else could have known. Even thoughts, things I never said out loud. And at the very end, one final sentence, freshly inked. "You belong to us now." Suddenly, the room got cold. One looked up and saw her, the woman from the photographs, standing in the mirror. But her reflection wasn't still. She moved even when I didn't, smiling. Then her mouth opened unnaturally. unnaturally wide, and she screamed, glass shattered. I fell to the floor bleeding, crying, unable to breathe. That's when the lights went out and the floor began to creak as something started walking toward me. Don't know how long I laid there on the study floor, my ears ringing, my body numb. But eventually I crawled out, dragging myself into the hallway. Back to the staircase, that's when I heard it. A soft thumping above me, rhythmic, like breathing, no, like waiting, the attic. I had never opened it, even when I first arrived. The hatch was sealed shut, but now it was slightly ajar, inviting. And for some reason, God help me, I climbed the stairs. Each creak beneath my foot echoed like a scream. At the top, I reached for the attic pull string. It came down slowly, like it knew I would. When I opened it, a wave of cold air hit me so hard, I almost fell back. But I went up, one step at a time. Into the blackness, the attic was bigger than it should have been. It was as if the space didn't follow the laws of the house. Endless, rotting wood stretching forever. And in the middle, a chair with restraints. Old leather, cracked. Dried blood beneath, and then I saw it, not with my eyes, but somewhere deep in my head. A creature, tall, pale, its skin like wax stretched over bone. Eyes black and glistening like oil. It didn't move, it didn't breathe, but I could feel it watching me, like it had always been watching me. I turned to run, but my legs refused, and then a whisper, not outside, inside me. You opened the door, you let us in. I fell down the attic ladder, slammed against the floor. When I looked up, the hatch had shut itself, but I could still hear the breathing. And it wasn't in the attic anymore, it was behind the walls. That night, I didn't sleep, but I must have blacked out because I woke up screaming. Only I wasn't in my bed, I was standing in the middle of the living room, holding a knife. My feet were muddy. My shirt was soaked in sweat, and my hands were shaking so hard I dropped the blade. I remember looking around, disoriented. Fireplace crackled like it was mocking me, and the clock on the wall, it was moving backwards. I blinked, and suddenly, I was back in the attic, but this time, I wasn't alone. They were there, all of them, the pale man, the shadow with the twisted face, the woman with sewn lips. They circled me in the darkness, hovering just outside the light, and one by one, they opened their mouths. But no sound came out, instead smoke, black and thick like burning oil, poured from their throats. It filled the attic, it filled me. I gasped. I couldn't breathe, my lungs burned. My chest ached like something was clawing its way inside. Then I heard it, the song, a lullaby, played backward, soft but wrong. I spun around and there she was, my wife, dead for years. Her eyes were bleeding. Her lips moved in time with the song, but the voice wasn't hers. You should have left the house alone. I woke up in bed, screaming again, covered in bruises that weren't there before. And the worst part, I could still hear the lullaby, coming from inside the walls. I couldn't escape it, no matter how far I ran. I always ended up back in that house. It was like it was waiting for me. And then one night, I finally found it, the door, the one I never noticed before. I'd passed by it 1,000 times, but this time, it felt different. I felt the cold draft before I saw the door. The air around it was wrong. It smelled like decay, like something ancient had been sealed away. I reached for the handle, and the moment I touched it, I knew it wasn't just a door to another room. It was a door to something else, something that had been locked away for a reason. The door creaked open, and behind it, a stairwell leading down into darkness. I don't remember making the decision to go down there. Don't even remember stepping onto the stairs. But before I knew it, I was standing in the basement. It was colder than anything I'd ever felt, like the air had frozen my skin. And there, at the end of the room, a large wooden chest, carved with strange symbols I didn't understand. I approached it slowly, my body trembling. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was something worse. A sense that if I opened that chest, I might never come back, but I had to know. I had to know what was inside. I knelt down and lifted the lid. And that's when it all went dark. Don't remember much after I opened the chest. It was as if my mind was swallowed by a dark void. But when I regained my senses, I was no longer in the basement. The cold, oppressive air was gone, replaced by a suffocating silence. And then I saw it, a figure. It stood in the corner of the room, shrouded in shadows. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its presence. A force so heavy I could barely breathe. Its eyes, those eyes were the first thing I noticed. They weren't human. They were endless pits of darkness. No pupils, no iris, just voids of emptiness that seemed to stare right into my soul. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't obey. It was like I was paralyzed, trapped in place by something beyond my control. The thing started to move closer, its long, skeletal fingers reaching out, dragging the air with it. I wanted to scream, but no sound came. Then it spoke. Voice that wasn't a voice. It was more like a thought, or a whisper buried deep inside my mind. You should have stayed away, it hissed. Double quotes, now, you are mine. The ground beneath me began to tremble. The air grew thicker, as if the house itself was alive. The walls creaked and groaned, and I could feel the temperature drop even further. I could feel the presence of something ancient, something terrible, pressing against my chest, suffocating me. I couldn't escape. There was no escape. The thing's hand reached for me the moment its fingers touched my arm. I saw everything. The house, the curse, the family trapped within these walls. All of it was connected to that thing, that entity locked away for centuries, waiting for someone like me to come along. I saw visions of the past, dark shadows moving through the halls, screams echoing from the attic. And then I realized something horrifying. The entity didn't want me. It wanted my family. It was using me to find them. It was using me to get closer to the ones I loved. It wasn't done yet. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. The entity was everywhere, its presence choking the air from my lungs. But something inside me stirred, a faint spark of defiance. I didn't know where it came from, but I suddenly remembered. I remembered the words the old woman had spoken when she warned me about this house. You must face the darkness, or it will consume you. My heart pounded in my chest. I wasn't sure what that meant, but in that moment, I knew I couldn't just let it happen. I had to fight, but how? I looked down at my hands, trembling. And then, I saw the key. It had fallen from the chest, lying on the floor next to me. A small, weathered key that seemed to hum with energy like it was alive. The entity watched me, its empty eyes following every move I made. It was waiting for me to make a mistake, to fall into despair, but I wasn't going to let that happen. I grabbed the key, and when my fingers closed around it, the room seemed to shudder. The air vibrated with something ancient, like a forgotten force awakening. The entity screeched, its hollow voice filling the room. But it couldn't stop me. With all my strength, I stood up, clutching the key like my life depended on it, because it did. The walls around me began to crack. The ground beneath me trembled. Wasn't sure how much longer I could hold on. But then I heard it, the faintest whisper. It's not too late. You can still save them. The key was glowing now, brighter than I could bear to look at. I turned toward the attic door. I had to go there. The thing didn't want me to. But that was where the heart of the curse lay. With every step I took, the shadows seemed to follow me. But I couldn't stop. I had no choice. Key thrummed with energy in my hand, and the closer I got to the attic, the more intense the vibrations became. It was like the house itself was alive, fighting me, but I refused to stop. I reached the attic door. It was sealed shut. But the key, the key fit. I twisted the key in the lock. The sound was deafening, a deep, grinding creak, as if the house itself were protesting against the intrusion. I pushed the door open, and the air inside the attic hit me like a wave. Musty, thick with age, and heavy with something else, something that made my skin crawl. The attic was dim, lit only by the faint glow of the key. Dust particles floated in the air like tiny, cursed specters. Everything was still, then I saw it. In the far corner of the room, an old wooden chest sat alone. But it wasn't the chest that caught my attention, it was the symbols carved into the floor beneath it. I felt a chill run down my spine. The markings, they looked ancient. I knew deep down that they were the same markings from the strange book I had found in the library, The entity was closer now. I could feel its presence lurking in the shadows, waiting, watching, just as it had when I first entered this cursed house. But I couldn't stop. I had to know the truth. I walked slowly toward the chest, the key still glowing. And as I reached it, the glow intensified, filling the room with an unnatural light. I couldn't breathe. I could feel my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I opened the chest. Inside was a mirror. Not just any mirror, though, a mirror with a twisted, warped surface. It seemed to bend and distort reality itself. The reflection I saw in the mirror wasn't mine. It was something else. It was me. But not the way I looked now. This version of me was hollow-eyed. Pale, with a twisted grin on its face, it stared at me with an eerie calmness, like it was waiting for something. I stepped back, my breath coming in shallow gasps. But the mirror seemed to draw me in, and then I heard it. You shouldn't have opened this, The voice, it wasn't mine. It was deep, rasping, like something ancient, I looked around, but no one was there. The entity, it was here. It had been here all along. Not just haunting the house, but tied to me, This mirror, this chest was its prison. And I had just unlocked the door. I stumbled backward from the chest, knocking over a stack of old picture frames. Glass shattered around my feet, but I barely felt it. My eyes were still fixed on the mirror. My reflection hadn't moved. It was still staring at me, smiling, taunting, as if it knew something I didn't. And then it blinked, but I didn't. I froze. It wasn't mimicking me anymore. It was acting on its own. That's when the attic door slammed shut behind me. Hard, the sound echoed through my bones. I was trapped, The light from the key began to fade, flickering like a dying candle, and with it, the last bit of warmth in the room disappeared. Then the whispering began, low at first, 1,000 voices. Speaking in tongues I didn't understand, they swirled around me, each one clawing at the edges of my sanity. I clutched my head, sinking to my knees. As the air thickened, the mirror began to vibrate as if it were alive. And from the surface of the glass, a hand reached out. It was thin, gray, almost skeletal, with long, crooked fingers that scratched at the frame. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. Another hand followed, then arms, and finally, it emerged. It was the thing that had been watching me, living inside the mirror, using my face as its mask. Now it was here. I couldn't scream. I couldn't speak. All I could do was watch as it stood up, towering over me, its smile still wide. But its eyes were hollow voids, and then it stepped past me. It didn't touch me, didn't try to attack. It just walked toward the door, and the door opened for it, I sat there, paralyzed, as the thing that looked like me vanished into the house. It was free, and I knew I wouldn't be, not ever again. I don't remember how long I stayed frozen in the attic. Minutes, maybe hours. Time stopped meaning anything the moment it left. Eventually, I forced myself to stand. My legs were numb, and my hands still trembled. But I made it to the mirror. It was dead now, just cold glass, no light, no movement. Just my own broken reflection staring back at me. But it wasn't me anymore, not really. Descended the attic stairs slowly, every step echoing like a warning. The house was quiet to quiet, no creaking, no wind, not even the usual hum of electricity. I reached the hallway and saw the front door open. Wide, outside stood the figure, my reflection, the doppelganger. Only now, it wasn't just mimicking my face. It wore my clothes, it moved like me, it was me, It turned its head slowly, those black, empty eyes finding mine, and then it smiled. That same crook smile I'd seen in the mirror. Then it walked away into the world, into my world. I ran to the door, but something stopped me, something I can't explain. It wasn't fear, it was finality. Like I knew chasing it wouldn't work. Because it wasn't trying to escape, it was replacing me ... And I was now the ghost since that night. My phone doesn't recognize my face, my family doesn't return my messages. My reflection in mirrors is wrong, just slightly off. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but I see it, I feel it. I hear it whispering when the lights go out. I sleep during the day now, because at night, it walks through the house. The thing that wears my face, and each night, it's learning to be more like me, but the terrifying part is, it's better at being me than I ever was.